without work, without struggle, a book of knowledge of communism obtained from communist pamphlets and works would be absolutely worthless.
Mira que ya viene la revolución, para que se asustan será pa' mejor. Es el pueblo entero el que ya está gritando, ¡viva la revolución!
One of my favorite works by Lenin, even though there's things I disagree with Lenin, I'm a student of Lenin, and I appreciate a lot of his writings. The Task of the Youth Leagues, which I have right here, this is one of my favorite pamphlets, and I just quickly want to read a short little excerpt from this pamphlet where Lenin talks about just that, not only studying communism, not just being burying your head in books and knowing every day and theorists and being a little special boy and knowing everything, but not knowing how to talk to people and not knowing how to interact with the masses. Here he's addressing young communists in the Soviet Union, telling them to go out and work for the people. So he says, quote, one of the greatest evils and misfortunes left to us by the old capitalist society is the complete divorce of books from practical life. For we have had books in which everything was described in the best possible manner. Yet these books, in the majority of cases, were most disgusting and hypocritical lies that described capitalist society falsely. That is why it would be extremely wrong merely to absorb what is written in books about communism. In our speeches and articles, we do not now merely repeat what was formerly said about communism because our speeches and articles are connected with our daily work in every branch. Without work, without struggle, a book of knowledge of communism obtained from communist pamphlets and works would be absolutely worthless, for it would continue the old divorce of theory from practice, that old divorce which constituted the most disgusting feature of the old bourgeois society. It would be still more dangerous to start to imbibe only communist slogans. If we did not realize this danger in time, and if we did not direct all our efforts to avert this danger, the half million or million young men and women who called themselves communists after studying communism in this way would only do great damage to the cause of communism. And basically, what he's saying here is that it's not just about reading books and you're a communist. What makes a communist is your everyday struggle. Some of the best communists that I've met in Latin America and the Caribbean have can't even read or write. I've met women. I met one woman, Margarita Murillo. I've spoken about her before, who was a campesina from Honduras, where my family's from, and she was barely literate. She didn't read or write that well, but she was very sympathetic to communism. She participated in helping the FMLN movement in El Salvador, supported the Sandinistas in Nicaragua, traveled to Cuba and the Soviet Union, and barely read Marx or Lenin, but she was able to actually produce movements in real life and mobilize hundreds and thousands of people. And that's what a communist is. A communist is a person of action. It's not just about being in your little studio and knowing dates and being a human encyclopedia. That's good too. That's important too.
Yeah.
But who if can you hit up 100 people right now and mobilize your community? Do you know who the leaders in your community are? Do you know who the families are? Can you organize a movement? I'm not trying to say I can do that. That's what aspire to do, but that's really where the efforts of a communist have to be. And I feel like in the Western left, so much attention is just focused on getting the correct theory, and then from there outward, being like, okay, with this little correct, perfect, dogmatic, concrete, clean, crispy, clean line, then we're gonna organize. It's the opposite way. You have to theory comes from practice, not the other way around. And if we actually want to see who are the real heavy hitters today, I know, I'm sure all you guys, why is it that some asshole called Andrew Tate gets more views and following of young men? If Andrew Tate was a communist or revolutionary, he can organize and mobilize young men around the world, millions, to do what it is. That's not to say we have to stoop down to his level and be as disgusting as he is, but we have to study, like we have to adapt our tactics to the 21st century and be relevant and be able to have a practical sway among the masses. And that's really what it means to be a communist, in my opinion.
There's
I
a
But
agree.
also, I think that the algorithm wouldn't push out people that are more genuine
Right.
than like
That's
Andrew
true. That's true
Tate.
too.
So that's also
That's very true.
like a factor too.
Yeah, that's true too.
there's a really good quote from the Red Nation in their kind of mission statement. It says, "We can die having the correct positions, but having accomplished nothing and freed no one." And I think that's a really good
Mm.
quote that kind of sums up the mentality of a lot of Western leftists. And again, we kind of mentioned the ties to the bourgeois academia, right? And a lot of people in those positions are more comfortable. So it's a competition of who can be the most smart. And I've seen it in the postmodernist kind of quote unquote synthetic left. I've seen it in the quote unquote MAGA communist. They have a different set of more rightist philosophers, like Heidegger, for example. They want to be esoteric and be the most deep and smart sounding people. And it's kind of like a freshman college philosophy student mentality. That's kind of what it reminds me of. Whereas you look at a people's philosopher like Carlos Garrido from West Marx, who I'm going to be interviewing him on Sunday, who really has that Promethean spirit of bringing the fire to the people, right? And I think a lot of people just got to realize, like, this isn't about being the smartest person in the room. I do not want to be the smartest person. I learn from having people like you that I get so much wisdom from. And I think having that open mindset, like actually listening to other people versus just like people can listen to the stuff I host on my channel. Like when I'm interviewing someone, I don't even like here I'm talking a lot, but when I'm interviewing someone, I don't talk a lot of the time. I'm more like there's some interviews where I talk like 5 to 10% of the time because I want to hear what the other person has to say to learn from them. And I think a lot of people they love more just like talking the whole time. And if you're the center of attention constantly, you know, you're never gonna be learning from all the other people out there and have that wealth of knowledge. Like talking to networks of people like you have given me way more than an education and a college degree could have, you know?
Exactly.
These
No,
these sentiments that you guys are espousing remind me of one of Malcolm X's most epic speeches that he gave in, I think it was 1963 in his Harlem Unity rally, where he was calling upon people in his nations, his African nation, to unite under one common struggle. And he said it like this: "It doesn't matter if you're in Christ, on Christ, or around Christ. You're still catching hell here with all of us together." Then he started dropping names like A. Philip Randolph, Martin Luther King, Roy Williams, and his reason for doing that was because he wanted the Nation of Islam, he wanted the integrationists, he wanted the Muslims, the Christians, the atheists, everybody to come together and solve their problems overnight. Without, and you didn't have to be a nationalist. He just wanted unity, and um, that flexible approach is what is lacking right now in a lot of these communist circles. Actually, probably most of them, at least
the
online,
vast
not around the
majority.
world.
In general too, not just in
Yeah.
the communist circles. But yeah, more
Yep.
people need to come together and talk.
But going back to what Ramiro's saying about some of the best communists he's known have been illiterate, but they've been great at mobilizing people because they know the families, they know the community. I feel like, if your family's established in a place like mine is up here, they've resided up here since 1960. Like that's, you know what I mean? Like that's your calling, that's your avenue, and it makes it much easier, to mobilize. And going to what other people were saying, most of these academic people, because I spent a year in academia in college and then I dropped out. Most of them just sit in class and they haven't seen the real struggle. I think the real struggle is going to come from like the factory workers, the retail workers, farmers, commercial fishermen. That's where the real struggle is going to come from, not from academia.